Hey Anwar, good morning.
Yeah, very good morning.
So we're all set for this logging and error handling episode. So welcome. Happy to start this fourth session of 10 episodes which we planned. And in today's episodes, we'll see how can we enable the gRPC service logs and gRPC client logs and how do we do error handling. So we'll learn about these two important things today. Apart from, we'll see that how can we include this gRPC in an existing web API. So I think these are a couple of common slides. And in last episode, we started introducing the Redis client, so we'll be able to use that same in this episode also. So the first thing is we'll see that how to enable the gRPC logging inside the server. Okay, that's the first thing we'll see that. Okay, so let's go. In last episode we start. So we'll go and see this. Um, okay, here is our coding for this session. So let me fix this. So we have to navigate to working folder, and inside this first folder, and inside this we have our server. Okay, so similarly, let's go back to the client one. So let me minimize or adjust this window so that we can see some of the important piece. So this logging is different from what we have done in the previous episodes. Okay, we'll see that how it is different. So we have our Azure Data Studio opened up, so where we are seeing a lot of information. So let's see, execute this server and client component once, and we'll see that. .NET run. I'm executing the server component. Just a moment. I need to rebuild the solution. Just give me a moment. I have to rebuild the solution and walk. Okay, 4 failed. Why? This shouldn't fail. Knowledge application core entities. Sorry, this should be the startup class. And why this is failing? We have entities. Everything is here. So let me build this. 1 second. Let me clean and rebuild. We have every solution. And let's clean that. I don't see any reason why it should fail. What? Which one is failing? Let me check that. If I build this, if I build this, okay, those package references to this project. Okay, 1 second. Because I have created this in another folder. I think that might be the reason this is asking for those references. Let's fix that real quick. Uh, okay, let me rebuild this. What is this? Client tabs. I think all the squigglies should go. Random number generator. I think I need to get this references. Looks like it lost the reference, so that was the reason it was troubling us. For some reason it lost that reference, and I think this should fix everything. Cool. So we are back on track. Those initial hiccups, no problem. Let me close all the documents. So this is the same code base where we stopped in episode 3. So there were few references which got missed, and that was the reason we got troubled. And now let's see that when we go to the server, and here is the client. Let me keep this aside. So I'll do dotnet run, and I do dotnet run here. Sorry. Okay, that's there. Dir cd working. So that's the server, and .NET run, this is the client. So we execute this client, and we see we are going and retrieving the content from the SQL Server. Okay, so if I give this guy go and talk to the data store, maybe the Redis or the SQL Server, it goes and retrieves that. Now, if you see this, lot of logging is happening here, the console logging. At this point of time, we are not doing anything on the client side, but a lot of things we are doing it on the server side. So if we focus on the server side, you see this Microsoft hosting. So they are spitting it a lot of information on their part. And if you see the debug, which is being written by this college service DLL, and we are writing something from the entity framework is writing something, and entity framework is writing some information, and again we are writing some information from our side, the server DAL, and this is our service, the controller, the main service, and the business layer, logic layer, and the data access layer, and this is from the ASP.NET Core. So quickly we can come back to the server and open this app settings. So here is where we have defined. So we are telling that, okay, all the default do this information logging, and Microsoft just do the warning log level, and for Microsoft hosting lifetime, do the information level. So that if you keep this aside, and correspondingly you go and check all these logs, so you can map these logs to one of these categories which we have specified here in this app settings. Okay, so these logging pieces are coming from there. Okay, and you can see that the Microsoft, we said warning, so that was the reason. You can see this, the entity framework core, it's being logged under warning section. And here the Microsoft hosting, you can see this, the Microsoft hosting here, Microsoft hosting, it's logging as part of the information. And this is the default, which is being coming from the ASP.NET Core. And where are these things coming from? So if we go and analyze the service which we have written, I'm sorry, the service which we have written, we can see that those pieces are coming from these logger which we have specified here, because every method what we did is we did an entry as well as exit. So for every method we did that entry as well as the exit. So we did those things. Okay, let me stop this. That might be the reason it's not picking up. So that's the default logging which is coming in. So the two kinds of logging we have seen just now. One is the logging which is happening from the framework side, and one which is logging which is happening from the uh, application side. So the application side, what we do is we have added that logger, and from that logger we were writing the entry and exit of entry and exit. Both we are writing it. So every time something the method enters and the method goes out of that, we are ensuring that we are writing some piece of information there, so that that will be easy. Okay, so for some reason, okay, that's the default thing which we did it. Application core. What is wrong with this application core today? Everything is good. Let me do one time a quick cleanup, and we should not see those thing. I don't know, for some reason it lost that references. Just give me a moment. Let's do a clean rebuild. Okay, that's good. And okay, I will remove this and add it again once again. Add a project reference. Let me add the application core. Oh, so any difference there? Why should it do that? Okay, so let's see. I mean, if it is troubling us, then we will see that. At this point of time, it's not troubling. So let's go ahead. So the next thing is we have seen those default logging, whatever which is happening, and we'll see one piece of information how to switch this on. How to switch this on from the from the app settings. Okay. Let's check this once again. Add reference. That should fix it. Why? What is this? Okay. I think I have another copy. I think let me get that copy. I think this is troubling. We will lose a lot of time in that case. So let me keep this working folder, and let me quickly go and remove that and get the code from the previous session. We'll start in a moment. Let me go and delete all this. Let me close it. Close this and close the Visual Studio. Looks like similarly what happened last time. We are facing a similar issue. I will remove this entire stuff. And similarly, I need to go get out of this client. cd dot 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 dot. Okay. Okay, I think this should clean up everything. Cool. So now we don't have any files under working. So let's go back to the session 3 where we stopped it. So I'm bringing in that the code of session 3 and dropping it inside this folder of this, and I will mark it as session 4 working. Let me quickly open up the Visual Studio, and while we are opening up, let me get this session for 12th June. Open the solution. and go grab this guy. Go grab this guy. It's loading. Cool. And let's do a build again. And it should build. Let's give that a moment. And in the meanwhile, let's go and fix the log path. Okay, so I'll get into this folder 1 and get into the gRPC server. I'm keeping myself ready. So this is clean build. It did not have any problem. I think some references when I copied, it got lost. So that was the reason we got troubled. That's fine. We can get going now. So, okay. So we have quickly seen that the type of logging which is coming by default, it's of all those things which we have configured either in the app.settings or whatever we do is whatever we do logging as part of our application code. So we saw two pieces of logging information. So one piece is the one which is coming from the app settings. You're given these are the log levels, and the other piece is we are explicitly logging it using the logger, like entry point, exit point, or wherever exception happens, like at all the places in different layers. If we go and check this Professor Bal, we can see that we are logging entry and exit, entry and exit. So this is one thing. Now coming back to the gRPC server, we are logging few categories here in this app settings. So we saw that default, Microsoft, and Microsoft hosting. So if you go and check this Microsoft documentation, when you check this Microsoft documentation, what do we see? That if you want to enable the gRPC, if you want to enable this gRPC logging, you can do one of the simplest way is to directly go and add this gRPC. And what level of logging do you want to see that? We just need to mark this piece. Alternatively, we just can go and add this as part of this startup class. But I feel that this is the simplest thing to do. I just copy that and come back and add this guy here. Okay, the moment I add it and execute the server, sometimes we need to add it in app settings.json, or sometimes we need to go and get and add it inside the app settings, this guy debug. Okay, so this we have to copy inside this development and add it here. I'm sorry, this is gonna add it. You can add it here. Okay, the moment you add it here, the level of debug, log level as debug, you can see that it is giving a lot of information. So which is coming from, it has been categorized like grpc.asp.NET Core. Now if you can see this category is from Microsoft hosting lifetime. Okay, let's see one round. Now that we have added this log information from the server side, so we just need to come and ensure that we are adding it like the gRPC to debug. Okay, the gRPC to debug you can do there, or you can do here. Okay, additionally we have seen that we are doing it, we can do it from the startup class, but I feel this is like a simplest thing to do. So let me quickly build it here and come back and start this gRPC server, and I'll keep this guy also ready. Now we didn't enable anything, the gRPC level logging at the client side. All we did it is only on the server side. So let's do .NET run. So when you do a .NET run, carefully we have to observe those log pieces. Now you can see this this debug information which is coming from the, explicitly it is coming from the gRPC. Okay, these things are coming from the Microsoft hosting. Okay, let me start this .NET run and go grab one of the professor ID, and I will drop that professor ID here. Let me place this side by side so that we can see few other information spitting out. And the moment I do it, now this guy is going and talking to this guy. and what it stopped at. 1 second. Sometimes it will start. See this, now it is spitting it. So if you come and carefully observe this, the moment we sent that record, it came and it started this message. So it is clearly writing like what all the things it is doing. So okay, it will be the mix with the existing thing. We need to carefully go and observe that. So what all the things which are coming from the gRPC and what all the things which are coming from the application logger, and what all the things which are coming from rest of the infrastructure. I mean Microsoft hosting or Microsoft or a lot of other things which are coming in. So we need to ensure that we are verifying it properly. Okay, let's quickly redo this exercise. Let me go and do a .NET run. For some reason it got stuck there in the previous instance. I will check that it should not stuck now. It got it. Now you can see this lot of things that are coming. So you can see this is from the gRPC. This is from the Microsoft ASP.NET Core, and these pieces are coming from our own DLLs. Okay, so now we were successfully able to enable this logs, gRPC logs, not any logs. Specifically it is the gRPC logs from the server side. Now to do it on the client side, you have a couple of options. Okay, so let's see those couple of options here. Based on what kind of client you have, the way you inject these logs will differ. Okay, let's see one of the way to do it in client side. Okay, so client side you can do logging in two couple of ways. Okay, one of the way is what, suppose if you have a web API or a worker service. So in that, what happen is you will have access to the dependency injection. What I mean is, if I come to this worker service which we have created. So in this worker service, if you go to this program, so similarly in web API also, if you go to this web API and you can go to that program.cs. So you know this here in the infrastructure, this is where you inject something and go and grab it from some other place. So you know that we can do these pieces. So if you have these kind of dependency injection, then you can load this into the service container, and anywhere in the controller or any place where you need it, you can happily go and tell that, hey, give me this logger factory where I want to, because this is the client, this is a web API client. We can directly use this one. Okay, so if not, we have to do it in a other mechanism. Okay, first let's see that how to do it to one of the worker service. Okay, so for that we need to have two pieces for that logging. Okay, so the first piece is we are not enabling anything in this app config. Okay, app settings are purely clean. We are not at all adding anything there. Okay, now coming back to this guy where you want to enable this gRPC logging. So all we need to do is we can add this piece in the worker processing, the service, worker service. We can come in here and I'm saying that I want this gRPC logging too. Okay, so gRPC logging, and you need to bring in the namespace. Okay, we need to bring in this those namespace. So let me grab this namespaces here. And I'll remove that extra unnecessary things. I'll remove. And this is the one which is coming from the diagnostics. 1 second, let me go grab this guy. Grab this guy. Hosting, this everything should be there. We don't need anything. So this is a log level hosting. Is that log level is ambiguous? Oops. I've added a wrong reference. Okay. This log level has been gone. So this is where we will inject this guy. Okay. Once we inject that inside our worker processing, all we have to do is we have to directly go and grab this guy, logger factory. So we'll come back to the worker processing and we'll add this here and mention that we need the logger factory. And as we did to previous dependencies, we say that go, I want to grab this guy and add it here. Okay, so that's where we added this one, and now we are calling this guy here, and the best thing to do is move this guy to that program where we are doing the worker process itself, so that it will be easy for us to add it as part of the or we can take this an additional parameter here. So we have to pass this logger factory. So this logger factory has to be added while we are creating the channel. So let's see that how can we implement that. So here it is coming as part of this method. So we can ask that we need a logger factory, iLogger factory there. We can quickly go in here and tell that apart from this, give me the logger factory also. And that logger factory is here. And while doing the channel, so we have this channel options. So this is where we need to go grab this guy and add this new channel options here. So we will add this new channel options and drop this guy logger factory here. Okay, so this logger factory we have added. So the moment you add, so it will start giving those gRPC level logs on the client side too. So wherever we are creating this worker processing, now that we have, we need to pass in the additional factory. We will pass in that. So that's done. So let me close this. Okay, so we'll quickly come and build this. Let's build it real quick. And cool, it built everything. So what we can do is again we'll go and start that .NET run. So this guy we are executing the server. So we are seeing those gRPC logs, whichever is coming from the server. Now we have added this client logs to one of the worker service. So let's go to that worker service. That is number 4, CD4, and CD this one. And we have all those files in here. So we'll do .NET run. So the moment we do .NET run, we should see that, see this, the gRPC. The client side, it is doing a lot of logging also. Okay, so now that's how we enable the gRPC logging from the server side as well as from the client side. So let's do a real quick recap. So when you're doing some enabling this server logging, we need to go and add it to that app settings JSON file, and that's how it gets kicked in. And you can see this when you analyze or view this app settings, you'll see that a lot of different logging pieces has been added with different log level. So the amount of logging you want to expose depends upon which environment you're testing. So when you are enabling this logging in production, please ensure that you're having only the required maybe errors instead of spitting in the information or debug. Sometimes what happens is if you're trying and integrating with a third-party payment gateway or some other service, and to that service we might need to pass some of the credentials, and we might write that piece also in the log saying that I'm going and talking to this endpoint with this client ID and with this client secret. So that gets spit into that particular server. So we should be extra careful. And similarly, when we are enabling the logs on the client side also, we should be extra careful what level of logging we are doing, and we need to analyze and ensure that we are not logging any piece of critical piece of information. Okay, so when it comes to the client, wherever we have that hosting builders or something where we can inject it, we can add this logging level. This is one of the method. Okay, we'll see another method now where we don't have this dependency injection at all. Okay, imagine we don't have any dependency injection. One of the type of project is this, the console application. So here we don't have that the infrastructure, the dependency injection infrastructure is not available here. Okay, so the simplest thing what we can do here is we have to go and create. It's given in this documentation. It's given in this documentation. Okay, first we have to go and create this logger factory guy, and then while creating this channel we need to inject it. Okay, it's not coming as part of the dependency injection. How we are getting it here in this controller, you can see this. We would have added that in the service container, and here we are getting that as part of the constructor injection, and we are passing it as part of the gRPC channel option. When we have the dependency injection framework or infrastructure built in, we can use this method. In the applications where you don't have this DI container, so the other method is to we can create this. Okay, let's see that it's pretty simple. Let me go into this one and grab this guy. We need to do two things. One thing is we need to create this factory, and for that we have to grab this package, NuGet package. Okay, let's do that real quick. Let me grab it and drop it here. Okay, the moment you grab and drop it here, it says that it's not able to find this logger factory, and you click on this logger factory, and the moment you do that, then it will trouble you in the create. Okay, so we need the NuGet package. So let's go grab the NuGet package. What is needed for this? Let me open up, and the NuGet package is this one, Microsoft extension logging console. So let me quickly come back here and right mouse click and manage NuGet packages, and go to browse and get this guy. And let me grab this 3.1 and install. And the moment I install, this will go, and that squiggly vanishes, right? So that's the trick. We need to get this logging mechanism, and then again the same process what we have followed for this worker processing. We can while creating this channel, okay, channel we have created here. So while creating the channel, we will be adding this channel options, and that's where we need to add this guy. So I'm coming back to this program, and here is the one where we are adding this channel, and in the channel options I'm adding this logger factory. Okay, so this logger factory, we just created it here, and we said that add the console logging, and minimum level is debug. Let's see this in action. Does it compile? Wow, it compiled. So let's go and see these two things in action. Server remains same, and now we need to switch the directory for the client. Come back, and here is the one where we need to go to the console, and let me start the dotnet run. And the moment we execute this, we are seeing this logs. We started seeing since long, and we go here. This is the place where we recently switched on dotnet run. And the moment we run this, we are not seeing that. Initially, we will panic. Hey, we switched on this logging and I'm not seeing anything. So what is that? So definitely we'll be a little bit panic. We'll see the difference. Now you see this the moment you are you're given this ID and when it started processing, when it establishes this, and that's when it will start spitting. Okay, so the difference will again see that real quick. If you come and again quickly navigate back to the previous directory where we enable that .NET run. When I do a .NET run here, so at this point of time, it's getting generated. You can see that the worker service, when it generated, it goes to the program class where it creates that builder and then adds this logging mechanism. So that's when everything is getting booted up and getting created here. So that was the reason when you add this logger, it has got all those container creation and everything, hosting and everything is happening, and this DI dependency injection is also there. So you will be able to see all those logs at the starting of this this application. Okay, but whereas in our scenario where it is a console application, so we don't have all those infrastructure, all those mechanisms here in this console application. It's a plain vanilla console application. All we have is a program class and a main method. It comes and hits this. So even though you added this logging to the channel options, but where are you using this? This is the first time you're using this channel, isn't it? The first time when someone hit this method, I've just blocked this guy where we are adding this information, but when we are coming for the first time and using this client, that's when it can use it. So that is the difference when we go and execute this .NET run. You see that it doesn't start up the way the rest of the clients which are starting, maybe the web API client or the worker service client. They are getting built using the builder, and they are having this dependency injection containers and everything. It starts up in a different mechanism. So this console application is different. So that is the reason this is a second method how to enable the client. If you see that here we came, and when we go and ask for a professor ID, at the time it is using this gRPC. Now if you see that it asks, do you want to grab another professor ID? I said that yes, I want to grab another professor ID, just give me the information. The moment you do it, again you see those logs. Okay, so now that's the pretty brief ways. We have seen quite a few ways to enable the logs in gRPC server as well as client. So that's quick recap. Here is the documentation where they are detailedly given how to do what, and you know that we can do it as part of this container creation. Where in the startup class you can add this when we create this default builder, or the simplest method is to add it at the inside this app settings. So I prefer adding it to the app settings. That's my personal preference. And when it comes to the client, there are a couple of methods to do it. One of the method is if you have dependency injection container baked in, you can do this way. You can add this in the dependency injection container and ask for those logger factory as part of the constructor dependency, and drop it inside the inside this channel options when you're creating the address. Okay, that's what we did it here in the That's what we did it here in this worker service, where we are requesting it as part of the constructor dependency, and constructor dependency we are passing it to our helper class, where we are creating this client, and that's where we have added as part of this channel options. Okay, the other mechanism what we have seen is when we don't have the dependency injection container at all. So how do you do that? That's also simple. All we need to do is grab this guy, log a factory, and then we need to add a NuGet package, because if not, it will not, even though you add a main package, it doesn't recognize. You need to add another NuGet package for logging.console. And once that is done, this logger factory gets created, and we are saying that add a console, and the minimum debug level is this. And then we go add it as part of the channel factory. So now that if you see that we have a large number of logging information, we are spitting it on the console. Okay, some of this we have seen it's coming from the ASP.NET Core, some of them from the Microsoft hosting, some from application logs, some from gRPC infrastructure. So we have quite a few pieces to go see how the flow goes, or wherever if it is breaking, then there is a chance that we can know where it is breaking, how it is breaking, those kind of information. And a word of caution is when we are logging, there might be chances that we might log some sensitive information. That means we are inviting problems into our life. So we need to ensure that whenever we are using this logging mechanism carefully, we need to ensure that we are not leaking any piece of sensitive information. Okay, maybe knowingly or unknowingly. We don't want any more problems than whatever we are facing as of today. So a word of caution, please ensure that we are not leaking any information. Okay, now the next big topic for today is error handling. Okay, so that's pretty much a very interesting topic. So let's start creating errors and then try fixing that, how we can try fixing those errors. Okay, so the first of all, what I would do is to replicate, I will get out of this and sudo service. This we have seen in the previous previous session. I'm saying stop. I stopped it, and now if you do redis-cli, it will not be able to connect because we stopped it. Okay, now I am starting this gRPC server .NET Run. Okay, so it successfully started. We might ask the question, hey, by this time it should have blown. Why? Because we didn't hit this path where we are going and talking to the Redis data store. So we are safe. We will blow in 1 minute. Okay. Now let me start this client .NET Run. So the client is booting, and now I want to view this information of this guy. So I grab it and let me place this side by side, and I give this information and I send it this information. The moment it goes, and it has thrown an exception here. It says that okay, gRPC server has gone, and it gave us some information, and that information has come in here, and it is going as an unhandled exception at this place, and we jumped out of that. There is no try catch block. Okay, this is at least not 100% damaging, but at least little bit of damage. If the expectation that the client application should run, no matter, even if you have 1 or 2 failures, and still it should run like a console application, it should run once and you do another mechanism. But if something is broken, at least it should give us an information saying that we are unable to talk to the Redis server, and continue, display the menu again. What do you want to do? All of a sudden getting an unhandled exception in the client application closes itself is unexpected behavior, and it's not expected in production. So how do we fix? Let's face another set of problem, and then we'll start fixing that. Okay, so I'll start this guy. Okay, once I start, I think that problem is solved. It will go talk to this one. So let me create another problem. Another problem what we can create is we can come here, and I will add an X here in the college demo DB X, which is technically it is not existing. So .NET run. I've executed this .NET run for the server, and I go and .NET run on the client, and still we didn't hit that path where we are going and grabbing the content from the data store. So we are safe at the moment. We are safe. And rightmost, just pasting this number, and this is where it goes and tries to grab the information, and it is trying to reach the data store. Okay, so it's trying to reach the data store, and it thrown an exception here. A lot of failures we are seeing, and we got this unhandled exception here. Okay, so at least this is again breaking. It's not an expected behavior. We are not telling that this is the happy world, but it's definitely not an expected scenario. The server is still running. We are not in a too much of damage, but this itself is good enough damage. So let's see another category of problem. Another category of problem is, let me restart this guy. Let me restart this guy. And instead of GUID, I'll give some information. Okay. So again, it's blowing. So exceptions can happen at multiple ways, or multiple ways it can happen. Okay. So let's start debugging. In what ways it will happen, how do we need to handle all those things? Okay, so we have seen different mechanisms which it is sending this information. Okay, I have done one mistake. Apologize for that. It's my mistake. Let me fix that. We need to redo the third scenario. We need to do the third scenario. In the two previous two scenarios, what happened is there was an exception on the server, and that exception was successfully transferred or sent back to the client, and client blew off saying that, hey, I don't know how to handle this, and we closed it. Okay, so this is another scenario where we need to see that .NET run, and you can see this. I'm saying Azim, and it goes, grabs this message. And there might be some scenarios where the exception comes on the server side, and it might get swallowed. If you write a try-catch block, generic try-catch block, and that will not be sent to the client at all, it might get swallowed on the server. So that's the another kind of scenario which we have to face it. Okay, so let's start debugging what is the problem and what kind of fixes we can put in place. Okay, so let's come to this place where we are retrieving the content from the server. Okay, this is the place where we are getting in the content, and I think here is the one where we are doing this one. Okay, at the first place, what we do is we add this try catch mechanism. We do the generic exception. We'll add it. Error, and will not do anything. Okay, we'll grab this entire piece of code, we'll grab this entire piece of code and wrap it inside this try catch block. Okay, and here is where we can write some console information, or where message equal to error dot message, something just for the time being. I mean, this is not the exact fix which we are going to put in, but we'll come back and we'll fix different problems. Okay, just wanted to understand what kind of exceptions it happens and how can we send this information so that the client can continue working without breaking. Okay, so we have that in place, and let's go and grab this .NET run here. And the moment this professor ID comes, we grab this guy, and this is one of the method where we have all the connection string and everything is established. Where I need to send this, where it started this exception. I should have done that. I'm sorry. gRPC server. Let me give that wrong connection string. Okay. In which method we have added that? It was we added in get all professor, and but we were trying to read this. So there are multi-level mistakes we did it. So let me grab this guy. We'll start it here. Try and do a catch exception error and wrap this guy inside this. Okay, and var message is equal to error dot message, right? So let me switch on here, and let's see multiple kinds of errors we'll see. First is where we don't have the proper connection string, or assume that the database itself is down, or there is a connectivity issue. It could be any number of problems. Okay, so let's see this guy first, where I'll run it, and I give a valid input now. Now we have this here, and the next thing is here. We are sending in a valid professor ID, and now this guy go try to talk to the data store, and what happened is it's not able to connect to the database. Perfect, but is it giving this information back to us? No, that information or that error has been swallowed there. So this is another kind of problem which I was talking. So here we have host of things it is displaying there, and you can see here the error it's coming in here. Okay, let me do a shift F9 and come and let's see this exception here. Okay, so it throw this exception, and it is given a lot of information. A connection was successfully established, or login process. It gives a lot of information. Okay, we can go and validate this one. Okay, so it was unable to contact it, and this is from the resiliency perspective, which we see it in future session, but at this point of time we'll not speak about the resiliency, and that's the exception it is thrown. Okay, so we will do another a small experiment. I will remove this and remove this, and I will grab this and I'll say that some information. Okay, let's do this experiment and quickly come back here, and again it got established, and here we are stuck. No problem. Let me grab this guy and go. Again, we have the server here. We are ready. We are sending in some information. So it went and it was not able to talk. Okay, the message is null. So we can we can go and grab this piece, and we have to check what kind of fix we can write it. So the type is what kind of errors it is happening. So let's go and grab that guy, and start fixing it. So one of the ways what we will do is we will go and add this invalid operation exception. So in the previous method, if you come and check this one, the kind of exception it throws, you can see it. We can go invalid operation exception. This one. You can see this one here. It clearly says that what kind of exception happened. So in the previous instance, what did we do is we just wrote a generic exception or exception like this one. Everything will come into this block, but we can handle specifically the kind of exception which happens, because we will pass through the dev, QA, test stage, UAT, prod. There are multiple environments we'll pass through. So at least this is a transient failure. As I told, we will come and revisit the transient failure in future session. But at this point of time, let's start remediating this one. So the first thing what we can do is we can grab this guy and and drop it here. Then we will discuss what we are doing essentially. So the moment an invalid exception happens, so most probably we know that it's because of the database was unable to save the database. And generally what we do is any call which is going from client to server, there should be one identification number for each request, a unique identification number for each request. So what happens is if one of the requests has been received from client to the server, and the server it travels from the main component which receives that request, from that it might go and talk to multiple layers. Like in this case, the life starts of that request here, and then it goes to the business access layer, then it comes to the data access layer, and then it goes to the persistence. Imagine persistence is in another layer. So it travels different layers. So some people will call contact, some people will call session ID, some people will call correlation ID, but net we will call a unique identifier for a request. So this is a request identifier. So what we can tell, that is one thing, how we tie up this client and server with the request. Okay. And another thing is, why do we send the correlation ID? So in this kind of scenario, for one of the requests, there was an internal system error. It could be multiple reasons. We were unable to talk to the third-party system, or the database is down, or there is an exception inside the code, or multiple reasons. It could be multiple reasons. But what we generally do is we will lock that piece inside the text or any kind of log files, or we'll drop it into the application insights, or drop it into the SQL Server or any data store. And then we will give a correlation ID to the customer or the client. So the client, and we will mention that at this point of time, we are unable to process your request. Please give this correlation ID to the administrator. So the customers will come with the correlation ID saying that, hey, this is the correlation ID. I got it yesterday 4 o'clock when I was trying to do action A. And the dev team again go back and verify all the logs and data store or application insights or Splunk or whatever the APM we use, and we'll find the reason why it is happening. Okay, that's the importance of having this correlation ID. And then we will give the the message what it is. Okay, this we call it as a metadata, a trailer. We'll see that in a moment what this metadata is. Okay, and here what we are doing is we are throwing an RPC exception, and here is what we are communicating this piece of information. In the previous instance, it said that the unhandled exception has happened. Okay, we will try replicating, and we'll see from which location where did we reach now. Okay, I'm commenting this one, and then I'll come back to the server, and I will stop this guy. We don't need it. So here Do we have the connection string proper, or did we spoil? Yeah, connection string is not the proper one. So .NET run, and then okay. Now again, I'm asking .NET run, and here it has come. I'm giving a valid ID. I'm giving a valid ID. So let it throw an exception, and let's see. Let's give it a couple seconds. Yeah, it has thrown an exception. Now see this, the status. Okay, the status code is unknown. So that is more painful to the client, saying when we see these kind of reasons, hey, you're saying that you thrown an exception and the status is unknown. Okay, so it's a multi-level painful stuff. Okay, so let's start fixing that now. And for that, what we are doing is we are coming back to this gRPC service. Let me uncomment this, and let me uncomment this. Okay, so now what we are telling is, hey, here it is, something has happened, and this is an internal exception. So we are telling that, hey, we are giving them additional information. This is a correlation ID. You can talk to us with this correlation ID. Here is a message, and we will throw an RPC exception, and we'll give a new status code. Okay, there are a lot of status codes, like aborted or record. If let's assume that they are sending the same record, you can say that cancelled, data loss, or deadline exceed, failed precondition, internal, invalid argument, not found, or okay, or out of range. Let's assume that we said that enrollment. Let's take an enrollment of some kind of address enrollments, and we expect that the minimum age should be 18 and above. What if the age of the guy who's trying to enroll his address is less than 18 years? You can say that it's out of range, or permission denied, or lot of things are there. So now this is more more visible, like what happened on the server side and what is happening on the client side. Okay, so we fixed one part of the equation. Okay, let's quickly go and see that real quick. Okay, I'm sorry, it was my mistake. Let me fix that connection string. No, it should not fix the connection string. I need the things to come back. I'm sorry. Let's fix that. .NET run, and here also I'm doing .NET run, and now let me place this server here and this guy here, and let's execute this. The exception has come. Now see this. It is pretty much clear now. Now it says that still we have to fix the client side, but at least from a first cut or first look perspective, if you see that, it clearly shows that, hey, something wrong has happened, and the status code is internal exception, and we have given the message. And the next obvious question is, hey, we have sent a lot of other information. Who swallowed it? What is this? So we'll go and fix that in a moment while we are fixing the the trailers, the metadata which we sent it along with that. At this point of time, we are not seeing that metadata, right? But at least this is a little bit better than the previous situation where it says that status code unknown. At least we know that, okay, status code is this, what is happening, right? So let's go and fix the client side piece. So I'll close that, and let me come back to the client side, and let's go grab this guy, the console app where we are doing this. So where are we? Yeah, I think this is the block where we are facing this problem. Okay, so let me quickly steal some piece of the code to speed up the process. Is it from the worker service where I used it? The try catch block. Yeah, here. So let's use this block here, the try catch block. Starting here, try. And because we know that we are throwing the RPC exception, we have to catch that RPC exception there. Okay, so let's come back, and here there's a console application that was in the worker service, right? So let me wrap this inside this try catch block, and then we can do var metadata equal to dot, we call it as a trailers. Okay, so what is this trailers is? Trailers is like you can send an array of information, like a multiple pieces of information which you pass it on. Okay, could be many different things which you want to communicate. Okay, that's one of the key piece which we can use it, apart from the regular things, whatever we see, like we have this message, the same thing like a inner exception message, source, stack trace, status code, and other things. So this is new thing. The trailers are something new. Just so I just want to concentrate on that piece here now. Okay, so let's grab this guy trailers, and I'll place it here. Let's quickly rebuild it and go back and execute this .NET run. We execute this .NET run there, but the client will execute it here because we placed a debugger. We want to view what is happening. Okay, so let me go and start another instance here, like a debug, start a new instance. Let's go grab this guy. So we'll keep those windows side by side so that we can see things in action. And right mouse click and drop it here. So we had an exception. The server side, you can see that server side has thrown an exception, and that exception is invalid operation exception, and it has given a lot of other information. And we have successfully wrapped it inside the RPC exception, and we throwed it from the server. Now it came to the client. Now inside this client, what we do is we'll do a shift F9 on this guy, and let's analyze and wait for spend 2 minutes on this to see what else is happening here. Okay, I think these are all the same thing. Like you see this data or heads result, help, inner exception, and a message, blah 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 blah, and everything is the same one. The only thing is the new thing is trailer, which we need to focus on this one. So if you see that there are 4 trailers which we have sent. Okay, and what are those trailers? And this trailer we remember because we are the guys who sent this trailer, the correlation ID, as well as this. These are the 2 trailers which we sent it. Okay, here on the server side, if you go and if we remember, we sent these 2 trailers. It's an array, as I was mentioning. It's an array of object where you have key value pairs. So correlation ID we sent it, the message also we sent it. Now let's come back here and let's do a shift F9 and inspect this guy. So we can see those trailers, 2 of the trailers, like correlation ID is the one which we sent it, and also we sent this message. What is the message? Like unable to talk to the database, right? And apart from that, it's saying that what kind of server it is, hosting server, and it is giving some date time when the exception happened. Okay, so now what happened is with this kind of exception, it is much more beneficial. Like we can do something, we can do something on this one. Like at least I can go ahead and do a console.write line. I can do that. and metadata of, and okay, that's it should be an array. Okay, metadata is the trailers. Okay, we once again will go grab this guy and we'll display. Once again, we still have this. Let's go and execute this guy. Okay, we'll go grab this guy. It should come and hit this debugger, taking a little bit longer than. Okay, we have it here. Okay, now that trailer, as we have seen in this previous instance, Shift F9, and we go that it's a count of 2. So we have this Kestrel. Okay, so RPC error. Let's do this guy, and trailer is a metadata. So where we have this enumeration. Okay, so we can traverse through this enumeration and give more information. Like if you check this, if the key equal to message, what should we do? If the key is something else, what should we do? Okay, so that's how we do that piece of information. Okay, so now that is done, we can go grab this. This has come. So metadata of 1 dot value. Okay, so that's how we'll log in. And okay, actually I think I placed it at a wrong location. Where are we processing here? I think this is where the request is happening. So it should continue here. So I think I need to move this block. I'm sorry. I need to move this block here, and this also, the block should be here, because for this reason it should not stop the application. Even if exception happen, we'll display what exception is that, and then we need to continue. We should not stop. So I think that's pretty much. We stop this guy and start this server again. Let me build it. So what happened is, in the previous instance, from the server side, we are throwing an exception, and we are wrapping that properly, and sending it to the client, and the client is catching that RPC exception, and we can do traverse through these trailers, and then we can do something. We can do something like this. Okay, we do for each var current item in trailers. Okay, now go this, grab this guy. We need this. Let's do a string interpolation. We'll check that dot key. What is the key which is coming in? And we quickly do the current item dot value. Okay, at least basic. We might do some other action based on this one. So we have built it successfully. So let's go grab this guy. Let me close this window. We don't need it now. And do a cleanup here. Instead of that, now we have both server and client. We grab this guy, minimize this window, and there you go. .NET run. Okay, .NET run, and again we come here, .NET run, and quickly go grab this guy. We'll see one more scenario after this, and we go hit it, and we are facing the problem, and then then we'll come and see this message. Do you want to continue? Okay, actually this message should come before. And again, it's asking for a new professor ID. So here we have traversed it. I mean, these are some of the other logs which are coming in. But if you see that, this is the trailers. So date, what it is, the date, server, the correlation ID, and the message. So this is very important for us. So when we received a lot of trailers from the server, we can log it in some of our data store. We can go and grab this one. So now we are not breaking in. Again, we can continue. You can see that the prompt has given me, and I'm able to continue that one, right? So that's one thing. There is another scenario. We'll see that real quick. Let me fix the connection string so that we can replicate another scenario. So the connection string is replicated. Now there will not be any errors. Now coming back to this guy, let's stick to the same. Let's stick to the same method where we get professors by ID and where we are sending this trailers. So imagine a scenario where we have to create our own exception. In the previous instance, what happened is there was an internal error, and we clearly told that, hey, you had an internal error. And now we will create our own fictitious error. Okay, we'll create our own fictitious error. So let's assume that that's a professor ID, whatever this professor ID we are getting it here. Okay, so this we are fixing it on the server side, guys. So this is like a fictitious error. Okay, so what I'm there's a professor ID. Okay, professor request.professor ID. I'm sorry, request.professor ID. Request.professor ID string request.professor ID dot length if it is greater than 1. I mean, just like I want to throw some exception. I'm just creating this just one of the fictitious scenario. Okay, so then I tell that bad value. Okay, invalid professor ID. Invalid professor ID. Okay, field is professor ID. Message is this professor has resigned, or this professor is not working with our organization or something like that. Okay, and we can tell that professor resigned. That's professor record blocked for viewing. We're telling that his records are blocked for viewing, and instead of we can do cancel or any different cancel. Let's go with the cancelled one. Okay, we are saying that now the gRPC request has been cancelled. Now we are throwing this RPC exception from here. Now, if you carefully observe in the previous scenario where we have been hit with invalid operation exception, and then we are creating this trailers or the metadata, and we are throwing the RPC exception. But in this case where we are doing the fictitious error, and we are throwing the RPC exception, and we are not catching it. So again, it will create a problem. So what we have to do is we will add this another block on after this. Okay, so here when the internal error happen or some kind of exception, maybe the network blip or database blip or something happened, and that comes into this block where we are clearly telling that there's an internal error, and due to some business validation, some business logic, we have to throw this exception. Here the professor has been resigned, or we do some business work saying that is professor active or inactive or something like that, and we are telling a professor is resigned and his records are blocked for viewing, and we are sending it. We are throwing this RPC exception, and that exception will be caught here. Okay, and rebuild this Let's rebuild this and let's see that one scenario. Let me come back here and start this gRPC server. Okay, we started the gRPC server, and we started the gRPC server, and .NET run will okay. Now we go and hit this guy. Now this is a valid professor ID, and if you see that, what are we doing here? Carefully observe that we said that this is the error. We are throwing it from this ASP.NET server, and we are saying that the status is cancelled. I'm cancelling this request, and we are specifying that the status code is cancelled and the detail error message professor's record blocked for viewing, and that message has come in here. And you can see this, all those metadata which we have sent it from server has successfully come to the client, and it is not blocking or it is not blowing off, but we are properly handling the error. And we have all this information at what date this error has happened, exception, and what is the server, and what other metadata which we have sent. We said the bad value, what is the bad value, invalid professor, and what field it is. You can give anything. It's like you are having a free hand. I mean, it depends on the contract between the server and client, what information you want to send it to the client and what client has to do with that. Okay, and clearly we are specifying this one. Okay, so these are a couple of scenarios for today. We have given an in-depth look into the logging mechanism, where we saw that how do we log, what kinds of log are available. We saw that the Microsoft logs or this default hosting logs or everything. In that, if it is a server side, all we need to do is drop this single line gRPC and your log level, and the server will start spitting the information. And again, if you come to the clients, so you have two flavors. One flavor is where you have this dependency injection container built into this infrastructure. We can use it that way, where you have to get this log factory as part of the dependency injection and drop it while you're creating this client. That's one mechanism. The another mechanism is where you don't have this dependency injection container. At that time, what we can do is we can create this logger factory.create, and there we have seen that we need to add this logging using statement, and on top of that, if it says that it's unable to find what the create method is, we need to add this NuGet package, and that will start spitting in a lot of information. Then the next big piece we spoke in terms of logging is we should have a careful consideration what we are logging in. Okay, we don't want to invite problems in our life, so extra careful when you're logging something. And then the next big section what we saw is on the exception handling. So there could be multiple types of exception can happen in production scenarios. Okay, one of the way one of the item what we saw is there could be a database connection string could be wrong, or there could be a temporary network blip, or for a temporary time the database is inaccessible. You are not able to access that at this point of time. So that can be fixed using these temporary blips can be fixed. I mean, the connection string we can't fix it, but at least the temporary blips on network or a data store, there might be heavy processing happening on that database server. Maybe reporting or analysis is happening. For that fraction of second, you might not be able to connect to the database. At the time, you will definitely throw an exception, but that's a resiliency exception. So we can fix that resiliency thing, but we will see that in the next section, how to fix this resiliency. But in other types of scenario, what happen is some of the exceptions which will happen and which might get swallowed on the server. And at that time, client has got no clue what happened between this and is waiting on the server to give us information. And in another type of scenario is what where server throws an exception and that exception gets perfectly percolated to the client, but client has got no clue why did it fail. In one of the scenario, what we have seen is it just thrown exception and said that status unknown. Now the client has got no clue what happened. So then we started our lives building this two types of exceptions, at least we handle today. One of the type of exception is where something has gone wrong within the infrastructure or with our coding. It's nothing to do with the business logic or anything. Something wrong happened internally. It could be like there is a bug in our code, or we are not able to talk to the database, or blip in infrastructure. It could be anything, but it's within our server. So that kind of exception, we need to carefully observe what exceptions are those, and we need to catch it in the same order. In our scenario where the connection string was wrong, we verified that the when we verified the logs, we clearly said that it is this exception, invalid operation exception. It clearly showed in the logs. So we know that. Then we came to know that, okay, this kind of exceptions can happen on the server side, and we fixed it. While fixing, what is the new thing which we are doing in gRPCs is the metadata. In previously, when we throw exception goes, but we didn't have a facility to wrap this metadata and send it across. So what we do here, we wrapped it, this metadata, we are giving in additional information and sending it as part when we are throwing the RPC exception. So once this RPC exception has been thrown on the client side, what did we do? We caught that RPC exception, and at least we were able to, because that's an enumeration, the trailers, we were able to traverse through that enumeration and got the key value pair. Basically, technically, we'll just log these information somewhere in our data store or a system, and then based on the customer service report, someone will contact the customer support saying that I was trying to perform this action, and here is a GUID which was thrown on my face. Could you please tell me what happened during that time? And this, we will use it for the investigation. And second type of exception handling, what we did is there might be some business logic, or could be bad data, like a or unauthorized request, or it could be business validation has been failed, or that particular user doesn't have the permission. This is some of the business rules or use cases where we will throw exception from our code, but it is not an internal exception, but deliberately we are doing it as part of the business logic. And while throwing, again, we need to be very verbose, specifying what is this exception, why did we throw this exception. And we have seen quite a few number of exceptions here, like aborted, like already a record already exists, or cancelled, or I mean, internal we already used it, like an invalid argument, or record not found, or out of range. Let's assume like salary band or something, permission denied, and a lot of other like system unavailable or unimplemented. Like we have exposed the gRPC server method, RPC method, but we didn't implement. At the time, we can wrap this metadata and say that, hey, I didn't implement this piece. So we did that. So with this, what happened is one of the good advantage is this: when some kind of exceptions has been thrown, and we are specifically catching those exceptions, and that is making us staying alive in the game. Instead of in the previous scenario, when some exception has thrown, this client said that, oh, I'm not able to process anything, and it stopped working at all. So now in this scenario, what is happening is we were successfully able to catch this exception, and now we know every reason why it has failed, and we know how to handle it. But the application is not stopped. We are perfectly able to execute this. Okay, so these are some of the things. Okay, I need to share the screen. So what is coming up? So next episode will be pretty interesting episode from the perspective of the usage. Or I mean, till now we saw that we spoke about gRPC server, we spoke about multiple clients, the console application, the web API, the worker service, the Windows forms. We have seen multiple types of clients, and we have seen that how to bring in the Redis cache into the mix. And then we have seen how to talk, and then we have seen the logging mechanism, this application logging mechanism. And now today, in today's session, we have seen a lot of logging mechanisms which are coming from Microsoft or the hosting or the entity framework core, including the gRPC logging. And then we have discussed about different kind of exceptions and different scenarios, and how to tackle a couple of scenarios from the server side where we deliberately send some of the exception due to the business rules, and some of the exception is internal server error. And how do we wrap those metadata? Technical jargon or the terminology what is used is trailers, and that's a new thing. And we know how to catch this RPC exceptions on the client side, and we know what are trailers, and it's an enumeration, you know how to traverse it, and we know this key value pair. So we have quite a few foundational blocks and knowledge we have gained over this past 4 sessions. Now, why don't we try make our hands dirt and feet wet in the real time hosting somewhere in this servers. So that's the motivation. So we'll be using this Redis cache, Azure Redis cache, and we'll host the database in Azure SQL, and we'll implement this a little bit of Cosmos DB also. So that gives us like a polyglot mix of data stores, a lot of data stores. A single application is handling a lot of data stores. And what do we do? We'll spin up one virtual machine in Azure somewhere in US or European region. That will be a Ubuntu flavor. And then we'll create another Windows virtual machine that will create somewhere in another region. I mean, if it is Europe, it is in India, or if it is different combinations, I don't know at this point of time. And then we see the server to server communication. And now this is giving a real-time production scenario and real-time integration. Now you have one flavor of operating system where you have hosted the server, and you have another flavor of operating system, and you're hosting the client, and they are from 2 different regions. You have a latencies in the mix, and you have different operating systems in the mix, and seamlessly how this gRPC works, and we'll see the numbers, how speed the numbers are. So that's the big piece which is coming in our next session. And back to you, Anbu.
Yeah, thank you so much for a wonderful session. So today we have no more questions. So we'll see next week. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.